So basically I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the kinds of things that in the province of New Brunswick the government is doing to try and promote sustainability planning.
Could we go back to that, just that last slide for a second? I just have a question. From my understanding in Nova Scotia's integrated community sustainability plan process, and I'm just curious in New Brunswick. I mean, the big driver for, I think, for Nova Scotia municipalities was that unless they put these plans in place, they couldn't necessarily access that federal funding for infrastructure investment.
And in New Brunswick, because they put these regional plans together, they ended up being able to access that money. So it was a different, just an entirely different approach.
Right.
But now, subsequent to that, municipalities have realized that they still have problems. They need a plan. The citizenry calls for this to a certain extent because it travels by word of mouth. You know, we've heard that CISC is doing this, so we'd like to do this, that kind of thing. And some of the bigger communities, like, I think you could probably go to a morning breakfast where they're doing, you know, world cafes, this type of thing, almost every week in the province right now.
Right.
But they're the bigger municipalities that are intending to do this kind of thing. So these are not directly related to sustainable communities, but they empower them, or they're examples in some cases. So I thought I'd take you through just a few of them. Provincial planning policy, coastal areas protection policy, our regional adaptation collaborative. Some of you may know a lot more about this aspect than I do, and maybe Rob will help me if I get into trouble there. A little update on our Southwest New Brunswick Marine Resources planning, because it's yet another example of a community trying to make some progress in terms of planning. And then I'll just tell you a little bit about my own program elements. So provincial planning policy, this is relatively new, although we've been working on it for about 4 years now. It's under the Community Planning Act. It's actually empowered by the Community Planning Act. And some components are there. It'll provide a provincial level type of guidance for all planning with respect to every type of land use activity that you can imagine in the province. And so we will have they're called statements under the policy, and there will be statements on things like coastal planning, agricultural land, heritage resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is to get all the various goals and so on that different departments and different managers of land uses would have to start thinking about their own work in the context of planning. And basically in New Brunswick we'd like to eventually see that there's a provincial layer to planning, there's a regional layer which we don't have in existence at all yet, and then a local layer which is more the municipalities and the planning that goes on at the more local, rural levels. Rural and municipal levels. I think I maintained this. The outcomes will be basically, we hope, this is the intent, stronger both municipal and rural communities, urban and rural communities. More consistency in planning decisions. So individual communities will plan in their own light and according to their own resources, but we would like them to be planning in the context of an umbrella for the whole province. So a good example would be coastal policy. The coastal policy tries to protect the entire coastal area, but then when you drill down to the local level, there may be additional things or nuances to that can be done at the more local level. And then, of course, stronger connections between planning at those three levels that I talked about. So it's sort of still in the future. Although we have draft statements on pretty much everything.
So would the equivalent be in Nova Scotia statements of provincial interest under the Municipal Government Act?
Similar, I would say.
I don't know. It's like a non-planner talking to planners from the province.
Some of this would be expressed as goals, you know, what we would like to see in particular areas. In other areas, like for example, our drinking water supply protection, it's establishing those goals, but also linking it to existing legislation. So basically, what you're trying to do in provincial planning policy is make an overarching statement on we want to protect drinking water for the province. and then linking it to the place in regulation where we already do protect drinking water. In other cases, there won't be regulations.
So Jane, you suggested, I think earlier in your talk, that the regional level sort of doesn't exist.
Right.
So what, right. Is the province committed to some kind of regional approach to things, or I mean, or?
Well, we've made various starts at it. A few years ago, a couple of years ago now, we worked with a number of communities around the St. John area, and there they were thinking of regional priorities. They were thinking that, you know, if one community makes a decision in this area, they have to be cognizant of what's going on in the adjacent area. And it's things like finding efficiencies. You know, if you have an industrial park in one municipality, do you need another industrial park 2 miles away? That kind of thing. And so municipalities know they have to talk to each other. Another area that we can help coastal communities, and this is around the idea of developing in the right place. I mentioned that a few minutes ago as one of the problems that communities face, and that's the Coastal Areas Protection Policy. I'll give you a bit of an overview here, but Ron may want to say something different here as well. Basically, we've had the Coastal Areas Protection Policy since 2002, and it is under the Clean Environment Act, and we are empowered to do some regulatory work there to put this into the regulatory base. But so far, we've managed to basically accomplish a lot of the goals of the Coastal Areas Protection Policy by using some of our existing regulations. So we use the watercourse and wetland alteration permitting system, for example, and we also use our EIA regulation. And some of the other departments and agencies cooperate with us on this. So, for example, under the Community Planning Act, we have our district planning commissions, and they try to work together with us to make sure that our subdivision planning and our building is going in a manner that's consistent with what we want to accomplish under the Coastal Areas Protection Policy. And basically trying to provide guidance to landowners and also to the planning authorities, which include the planning commission, on things like erosion control, storm surge protection, where we place our infrastructure, where we build our homes, and in a new area with dune restriction.